From Alberta's Premier taking a stand against Trump tariffs to the pending departure of the Prime Minister. Time now for tonight's politics panel. And joining us this evening, former Lethbridge Mayor Chris Spearman and Chaldeans Mensah, faculty member in the Department of Political Science at MacEwan University. Good evening to you both. And let's begin with our province pushing back on Trump tariffs.
The Americans have to take responsibility for the fact that they are also a net exporter of cocaine, crystal meth, and they are responsible for this as well.
The Smith government updated efforts Wednesday to secure the Alberta-Montana border, as well as outlining how it will retaliate. The plan does not, however, include taxing oil exports or curtailing shipment of crude south of the border. The Premier, though, will also head to Houston next week to further lobby U.S. effort. Officials, that is. Chris, let's start on what Albertans heard from the Premier on Wednesday. She's taking a lot harder line against the U.S., against the actions of the President. How different a Danielle Smith is this after the efforts to win over the Trump administration, visiting Mar-a-Lago?
Well, I believe the Premier's been played a little bit by some of her friends and played by the President, and now she's had to do an about turn. Now she has to defend industry in Alberta that's going to be victimized and people in Alberta who will lose jobs. I've been critical about the Premier's lack of focus on our food industry, our agri-food industry. We'll be facing 25% tariff increases, the threat of the possible loss of investment and transfer of jobs. How will the Premier speak to that? She's only speaking to oil and gas. I heard from the Chinese consul. He was down in Lethbridge for the Chinese New Year events. He said, you know, right now in TMX, 50% of the oil passing through TMX is going to China, and it's going there tariff-free. I'm not saying China is the perfect market, but certainly there's other markets other than the U.S. for our oil and gas, and we need to begin diversifying our sales markets in addition to those for our food products.
Chaldeans, this change of stance, does that now mean Danielle Smith is a full-on Team Canada member?
Danielle Smith has been a Team Canada player, but she also incorporated this diplomatic efforts to try to reach the Trump people. I think that right now she's full-on board the Team Canada approach, and I'm actually very pleased with how Canada has reacted, including Danielle Smith. This is a big win for Canada. A big test has been met. Canada has been resolute, has forcefully communicated our unhappiness. We've introduced measures, and some more measures are coming, especially from Ontario. And I think Danielle Smith, for example, will be going to Houston. He's going to talk to the CERAWeek participants on the energy issue. So she's living that diplomatic avenue with talking to American Acted Open, but also being forceful with the rest of Canada in signing up to this Trump tariff challenge.
Chris, halting the purchase of American booze, shifting procurement process by Alberta marketing campaign. What kind of note does the Alberta retaliation effort strike for you? Does it go far enough?
I think it could be stronger. In other provinces, they're removing American products from the liquor stores right now, off the shelves. It's not about future purchases. It's you cannot buy them in Ontario. They've been removed. I'm concerned that I read in the provincial budget that we're going to increase taxes on Canadian wines. I think we should be doing the reverse. We should be reducing the taxes on Canadian wines from other provinces, and we should be increasing the taxes on American wines. I think we could have a better and a stronger pro-Canada plan in Alberta than we are currently addressing, and I think we need to be careful that when the Premier goes to Houston, that she is supporting the Team Canada message.
Chaldeans, the Premier appears to be standing firm on opposition to any form of an export tax on oil and gas, curtailing shipments. How do you see energy fitting into the tariffs debate now? Might it end up being a weak point the U.S. could exploit?
No, Michael. I think that, yes, indeed, energy especially oil and gas exports. I think a big feature and a trump card, as the Premier put it, in dealing with the United States. But we have to be careful on that front because there is a 1977 Transit Pipeline Treaty, which calls for the uninterrupted flow of hydrocarbons to the United States. So yeah, we don't want to play the Trump card of violating our treaty commitments. We need to keep that in our back pocket. But I think that I'm really heartened by the Premier of Ontario thinking about imposing 25% tariffs on electricity on Monday. This is really going to hit home. And I think I'm really foreseeing that Trump will begin to really recalibrate, because this is going to hit Americans very hard when electricity prices begin to go up.
Chris, on that point, Ontario's Doug Ford, he says he's ready to impose, starting Monday, 25% tariff on the export of electricity to the northeastern U.S. How likely is Alberta's approach, though, to the treatment of oil to reignite questions over the unity of Team Canada?
That's yet to be seen. I think if Ontario and Quebec are taxing their export of electricity, it's going to open up questions about why Alberta's not playing a bigger part in Team Canada. So if they're prepared to do it with their energy exports, why wouldn't we be prepared to do more with ours? And that's not going to be popular within Alberta, but within Canada, Alberta's always seen as an outlier, and I don't know how many times we can differ with the federal approach when 8 other provinces are participating and maybe Saskatchewan and Alberta are not. I think that won't win us friends nationally and won't win us any political influence down the road.
Chaldeans, we heard from the Business Council's Mike Holden off the top. How challenged are the provinces going to be in removing interprovincial trade barriers, getting more goods moving east and west instead of south?
Michael, Canadians have talked about removing these hindrances to internal trade. It's been debated over the years, but action has been lacking. We need to really seriously consider the need for policy convergence in Canada to allow for labor mobility, to remove these administrative regulatory barriers that prevent trade from flowing in Canada. Maybe this Trump tariff challenge is an opportunity for us to look inward. Look, Trump represents an anti-globalist approach. He is focusing on helping the United States bring home jobs and let companies reshore back to the United States. So we have to look inward and try to reduce these barriers, but also diversify our export opportunities elsewhere. China, European Union, we need to be fighting a very determined battle, and this means exploiting our natural resource advantage, building pipelines, and I think this is a new era, and Canadians have to meet that challenge going forward.
Yeah, something of a TSN turning point. All right, time for us to take a bit of a break. But when we come back, the countdown to Justin Trudeau's departure as Prime Minister. More from our panel in a moment. Welcome back. The days are quickly dwindling for Justin Trudeau as Prime Minister.
These have been complicated times. This is the job I signed up for. This is the job I will continue to do until the very last moment I'm doing this job. And it comes with the territory to be steady and strong for Canadians.
The PM replying to questions from reporters on his pending departure as Prime Minister. It is anticipated he will hand over the reins following Sunday's conclusion of the Liberal leadership race. Chaldeans, he's likely 4 or 5 days away now from a transition, from no longer being Prime Minister. How do you see that registering on the radar of Canadians as we all digest the chaos and uncertainty coming from south of the border?
Yes, Michael, Mr. Trudeau is going to be transitioning away from political power. March the 9th, the Liberals will decide on the leadership finish the leadership campaign, and we'll have a new elected Prime Minister in waiting. Mr. Trudeau says he's not going to be a caretaker Prime Minister. Parliament is supposed to reconvene on March 24th. If the new leader, he or she may decide to call an early election, which means Mr. Trudeau will not be a factor, somebody hanging around. But Michael, I must say that in this period of challenge, over this short time that we've had on the Trump tariff issue, Mr. Trudeau has handled himself very well. He's displayed leadership. He's been resolute in bringing together the premiers. So for a lame duck prime minister, I think he deserves some plaudits, for his work. But he needs to fade out nicely and let the new incoming prime minister call the shots for Canada.
Chris, how do you think Canadians will weigh these final few weeks of Justin Trudeau's time in the PMO? How will this tussle with Donald Trump over tariffs be reflected in his legacy?
Well, I think he's ending very, very strong. I think the YouTube views of his final speech, where the other day where he referred to Donald and said it's just inconceivable. This is very dumb. No one understands how you can side with a murderer and against your allies. When I think the last time I looked at that, it was about 12 million views on YouTube. He's finishing as a statesperson. He's getting respect around the world. The exact opposite's happening with Donald Trump. In Canada, Justin Trudeau has suffered attacks constantly for 3 years, primarily from the CPC and Alberta politicians. And the people who have been attacking him really pale in comparison to what Justin Trudeau has done and his performance in these difficult times.
Chaldeans, to use your words a moment ago, does he just fade into the background?
Yeah, Michael, I'm sure he will find something to do after he leaves office. There's opportunities for him to do a tour around the world and speak about his experiences, maybe work for an international organization. But look, Mr. Trudeau has had a troubled legacy here in Canada. Under his rule, he failed to focus on some of the internal challenges facing the country. He was always trying to meet global imperatives, working for policy convergence on the global scale on different files. But this is a time that calls for Canada to do its work, build the foundation here. And I think he's realized in the last couple of times he has that needs building a broader coalition. And I think he's done a reasonable good job on the Trump tariff challenge. But his legacy, I should say, is a mixed one.
Chris, what does the loss of a federal foe mean for Alberta, for the Smith government?
I think I think the people who are going to miss him the most are the Alberta politicians, for sure. They certainly at the CPC federally are going to try tie whoever is elected the leader of the Liberal Party to Prime Minister Trudeau and try and do that. But I think they've got big problems themselves. They've been saying for 3 years Canada's broken, and now they have to turn around and say Canada's great and we have a lot to be proud of. I think that's a big switch for them. What Mr. Trudeau is going to do now, I hope that he forms some form of diplomatic role, that he can go and lobby and make friends for Canada. What we need to have is international allies as we go forward with this. It's an uncertain time. It's one we've never been in before. Mr. Trudeau can be removed from the domestic political scene and do tremendous work for Canada. I hope he does not fade into the background and do next to nothing. He can be visiting diplomatic heads of state all over the world and making friends for Canada, building allies and supporting, getting support for what we're doing and making sure that Trump doesn't achieve his goal of dominating countries and in order to achieve and seize their resources. So I think Mr. Trudeau has great credibility internationally and can still perform an important function for Canada.
All right, gentlemen, we're out of time. We'll have to leave it there. Good to see you both. Thank you kindly.
Thank you
You're
very
welcome.
much,
Thank you.
Michael.